This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for three. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.
If I have to choose between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, I'd rather have CJ Stroud, really for the reasons that you mentioned in terms of size. Dan Orlovsky was on Pat McAfee, and he was talking about, and he believes that CJ Stroud is the better of the quarterback, not just from a size point of view, but from an accuracy point of view. But he also talked about some of the concerns, and I also share some of those concerns, and I was just wondering if you do. So some of those concerns were that if you look at all the quarterbacks, even if you look at Florida, Kentucky, Alabama, they did not have the receivers that CJ Stroud had. So his receivers were able to get separation consistently. He was able to go through his first read. I believe the stat was like 73% of the time, if I remember correctly. He also had multiple O-line in this draft. So he had people protecting him that are going to go in the first round, whereas that is not the case, for Kentucky, Florida, Alabama, et cetera, right? So the point is that he had the best O-line and the best receivers. And do you think that he's going to be able to reproduce what he did in Ohio with having not the best situation the way he had the best situation in Ohio?
Yeah, I think in today's league, what you're seeing is like you have to have an offensive line and you have to have weapons to succeed. Every team that's having success has an offensive line and some sort of weapons. Like the Chiefs have weapons, the Eagles have weapons, the Dolphins have weapons. So like they're going to have to you don't want to put your quarterback in that situation. And who, you don't really know because we haven't seen CJ Stroud without those weapons and without those pieces. I mean, he's been gifted with a lot of great weapons, and obviously we would love to see him without those. But ideally, the Texans don't want to put CJ Stroud in that situation. They don't want to put him in a situation, which is why they shored up the offensive line. I still think they need a center, but it's probably why they'll draft a wide receiver within one of those first 33 picks. So I think even though you wonder, can he do it without the same talent level? And he's going to have to in his first year. I think what they're going to end up doing eventually is they're not going to expect him to take them to the playoffs that first year. They're going to try to put pieces around him so he can succeed. I think that's the goal that you're seeing a lot of these NFL teams do, is try to put the more pieces you put and weapons you put around these guys in offensive line, the more likely they are to be successful. Bengals too. I meant to mention the Bengals. They improved their weapons tremendously. So you have to do that in today's NFL to have success.
So one more question about CJ Stroud. So one of the things that he mentioned at the Combine was that he wanted to use his legs more. And I was trying to rattle my head and just think, like, have we really seen someone that was not necessarily a statue in college, but for this argument, I'm just going to call him a statue, and then changed in the NFL? I don't know if that's happened. I'm just wondering, from anything you saw at the pro day, because he didn't run a 40 either, do you think there's a chance that he actually becomes more of an athlete? Because I know he was a basketball player before too, right? So he was an actual athlete. Do you think that we'll actually see him use his legs more once he reaches the NFL, or is that a pipe dream?
No, I think he didn't have to use it as much at Ohio State. Like we mentioned, right? He had all those receivers who were open. He didn't have to take off. And I think he mentioned that as well. But when you saw it, he had to run a little bit when they played against Georgia. Georgia had him on a run, and he was making throws. He was hitting guys. He had his best game against the best defense in the entire country.
Balled out. Yeah.
One of the best teams of all time, probably. And he balled out, and he showed that he can do it with legs. I think he answered those questions in that game. And I think he has athleticism. He just hasn't had the opportunity or hasn't had the need to really use it as much. And what he said at today's pro day was, teams really aren't asking him to show off his athleticism like that. So he didn't feel like he didn't need to run a 40. So I think people are comfortable with him. I think they think he has the ability to take off and make off-script plays if he's needed to.
This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown. We not trying to go for three. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they about to stampede.